talking about the vibratory consciousness of reality. That's the first.
Okay.
That's the theme.
Okay.
The first thing I wanted to talk about, because in my experience, I could feel that quite psychological, and I remember when I was a child, I was very sensitive and much more connected, and I could feel my environment in different way. So my question was how to, not really how to get back to the to this state, but what would be the impact of this, of finding back this connection, this sensitive way of perceiving reality.
Okay. In other words, functioning at the vibrational by vibration. In other words, like a child. A child functions only by vibration. In other words, he doesn't think like adult thinks, and he functions by vibration. This means that he follows whatever movement he does. You see,
right?
Vibrations and action is entwined together. You know, so the kid, the child, he just lets go and try to discover things. You see, he is in his own authority. See, a little bit compared to an adult. You know, it's different, but he's in his own authority, and he discovers as he's creative. He's always looking to learn. You see, he's a learning machine. He learns by himself. You see, adult they think that they teach a child. You see, but they don't teach a child. A child teaches himself. Actually, everybody teaches themselves. You know, they're influenced by their environment, but they teach themselves. See, so they mimic the adults, or you know, and they discover their environment, and through that they live a certain apprenticeship of their environment, and they develop, they evolve like that. See.
Something that is quite interesting is that when a child is, when there's a baby, well, the baby has so many connections in his brain. He's so much more, how to say that? The brain is always alive. There's so many things happening. So much more than when the adult learns. Has so many more connections.
Yeah.
And this is proved. So it's interesting. Is it because he's more connected to the world, like because he connects through his senses?
It's because when you function by vibration only, everything is open. So all the connections are there. You see? Everything is open. He's open. And once he starts being influenced by the parents, which function psychologically, then all that, and through his apprenticeship, you know, and mainly by the influence, psychological influence of the parent, he starts categorizing, you know, he starts specializing. But at first he's very open, you see?
Right.
So even an adult which awakens and functions by more and more by vibration, there'll be more connections. See, yes. The brain follows the consciousness, and not the contrary. You know, like neurologists, they think the brain is it. You know, and the brain creates the consciousness. It supports the consciousness, you know, but it's two different things. It works together, but it's two different things. It's like we got a second brain, an etheric brain, you see?
Yeah.
In the sense that the memories are not stored in the brain. That's what the scientists discovering right now, you know. It's not stored there, it's stored in ether, what they call ether, in the fifth dimension, you know. It's a vibratory language. It's pure vibration. So that's what creates matter, actually. It takes that dimension before, like the fifth dimension was there before any other dimension. You see, before matter. We couldn't call it fifth dimension. It was the first dimension. We should call it the first dimension. You see, but it created matter. It created the other dimensions. See, comes from the energy, pure energy.
So the only reason we don't see it that way is because men's developed this capacity to look reality through forms, through matter. They couldn't see all this vibratory reality, no. So they just developed their way of looking things through forms, right?
Yeah. And they developed, they had the intuitive insight of it. They created religions, see? Beliefs.
Yeah.
Or you take the shamans, you know, they're in contact with something, you know. They're in contact with the fifth dimension. They're in contact with the vibratory aspect of reality. But they interpret it, see, very primitively.
So what does come from this interpretation of I am the wall, I am connected to everything? How does that come to their senses? Even
when someone says begins to be conscious of that.
So you mean that we are connected to everything?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean. What does it mean? You know.
Yes.
You could say, well, I'm connected to everything, and you have a hard time connecting with your kid or with your wife. So it's an attitude, you know, I'm connected to everything. I'm conscious that I'm connected to everything. But I have a hard time connecting with my wife or my brother or, other people. That doesn't make sense, you see. We're connected because we're energy, we're matter, we're part of the universe. But that doesn't mean we have the consciousness sufficiently evolved to perceive certain realities. See? So a person has to first awaken to reality. Okay, what is reality? What's going on? The problem is, and we're going to come back to the child, the problem is that individuals are subjected to a collective consciousness. You see? They're just a number, an average, and they have no identity, you see? They are in the authority of the collective. Why is that? Because when they were very young, they lost the little authority they had. You see? Because parents impose their authority on the child. You see? Child is natural. And then the parents impose that because they think Well, we know because we're the adults, you see. They don't study the child. They don't follow the child and learn, you see. And they impose that, and the child loses that the little authority he has, see, because he's afraid of being rejected by the parents. And that's what happened. Then his consciousness develops. He develops a collective consciousness. See?
Yeah.
He's afraid of judgment. He's afraid, actually, always afraid of being rejected. See? So he functions by the book being the collective consciousness. So he has no identity. See? His identity, his personality is formed by collective consciousness. And of course the programs or the habits and the automatism that come with that.
So you say that when we are free from this collective authority, from this collective consciousness, then we find ourselves.
Yes.
We discover what we truly are, right?
Yes. Through observation, you see? Once you start observing the mechanics, what's really going on, then you acquire experience of your own authority. You're the one that's observing it. You're in your laboratory, you know, and you observe it. So you're autonomous then. You start being autonomous. So you start being more and more in your authority. So the more you're in your authority, the more you're in your identity. See? So then you start being able to manage your life. Otherwise, you manage your life through the judgment of others. And it's very subtle, you know.
Yes.
You can read a book, you know. You read a book, you go by the book, you go by what's written in the book. You don't go by your own experience. You see, you don't integrate it that way. See? You just learn and accumulate the knowledge, but it's not part of your experience. It's got to be part of your experience. Really part of your experience, what you see, without the book. Book can be information, you know, but after, it's what you do with that information that's important. See? Don't do nothing.
People go by the book plus...
Pardon?
It becomes automatism to go by the book as well, so it's not even their actions, it's just a habit.
Yeah, it's like going to university, okay, or school, whatever, up to university. You're not a doctor till you start practicing. You don't know nothing, actually. You're full of information, but you got to apply it now. So that's why they have an internship and all that, because it's necessary. Otherwise, you're going to kill people, you know, by making mistakes. And they do make mistakes anyway, you know. So that's why the older doctor, they watch the interns, you know, very carefully, because it's dangerous. See? They got to learn everything and integrate what they know. Otherwise, they're not going to be competent. And when you're a doctor and you're not competent, it's very dangerous for the patients. You know, same thing with lawyers and everything.
How can we make the connection with all this development and what you call the vibratory consciousness? How does that connect? What does that create? How does that influence this capacity to learn the new way, the development of identity and autonomy?
Yeah, because we, whether we're conscious of it or not, we learn by vibration. You see? We learn by action, by doing things. Whether it's mentally or physically, it's the same thing. We learn through the accumulation of experience. You see? It creates a program. There's a memory, you know, it's accumulated. So once there's enough accumulation, then we know there's an automatism. So it's easier. You learn guitar, you know, you practice the guitar for a year, regularly, you know, constantly, then it's going to be automatic. You see? You don't have to remember everything in your head, you know, psychologically. It doesn't matter. It accumulates anyway, whether you're conscious of it or not. Look at kids. You know, they learn very fast. Why? They do things. They do. They try and they fall. They try. They fall. They try, and that's the way we learn. The experience accumulated and then becomes automatic. Once you have the automatism, then it's easy. You learn how to ride a bike like that, you know.
Mm-hmm. So you mean that when people try to record things that into the psychology, they actually slow down the learning?
Yeah, they interfere in their learning, actually. See? They interfere psychologically in their learning. That's why the education system is so flawed, because they don't teach them like that. You see, they're not conscious of that, or very little. So they try to make them remember literally, you know, repeat after me, after just reading, you know. It doesn't work like that. See? You got to accumulate the information and use it, you know, and repeat it.
Is it connected with the thing that when a child learns something, he just don't learn a specific thing. He learns like a wall at once. A whole at once.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Is it because the brains connect? Like the studies made that says that when a child just play in a playground, it's just all his brain learns at once. But when you try to study something specific, only a part of the brain is functioning, and scientific says that when all the brain works together at once, then there's much more connection made.
Well, it's the way he learns, you know. A child, if he's not, if the parents do not interfere too much, then he'll learn more and more by vibration, you know, by experience. And if he plays, if he likes what he's doing, it's easier because he'll repeat it. You see? And it's the repetition that makes the whole difference. See? If a child likes skateboarding, he'll practice and practice and practice, and he'll start being good on the skateboard. And he'll imitate other kids and all that. See? Even if he's very bad in school. See? And he has learning disabilities. But he likes doing that. See? So he learns that easy. Because he repeats it. But at school or any other subject, he doesn't like. See? So he has a resistance. So he doesn't repeat as much. He doesn't practice as much. See? So...
yeah, there's no enjoyment in what he's doing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's just like not connecting to it.
Like parents, they put pressure. Parents put pressure on a child to do his homework, you know, and the school put pressure, you know. They give a grade, you know, for his homework and all that. They shouldn't do that. Homework is to, what is our homework? It's to become autonomous. You see? Actually the purpose is for the child to be autonomous by himself. See? And correct himself by himself. You give him the book so he can correct himself. The purpose is to correct himself, you see, by himself, and to learn by himself, see, to practice by himself. And it's not the subject, it's the experience, it's an experience in learning, in being autonomous. That's the homework. The homework is to be autonomous, you see. That's the homework. But people, they forget that, or they don't even know that, you see? So they give a grade according to the subject matter and all that. That's not what's important. What's important is that the child is autonomous, build or practices autonomy, you see? His homework, and corrects himself, you see? So he sees his mistakes. Even if you give him the book, so what? He'll do the homework and then correct with the book, see? Then he'll know his mistakes. He's by himself, you see? The parent is not there to tell him, well, there's a mistake there, and he feels bad about it, you see, because he's not, and the parent will put pressure on the child because they think, and that's the collective thinking, that he'll have bad grades for his homework. Shouldn't have any grades for a homework. It's not the purpose, you see?
It creates also a sense of comparison between child and
exactly.
This reinforces the pressure on them and
exactly.
very disturbing for the learning,
exactly. Right? Yeah. You see, education, the education apparatus or organization in the world, they only, it's only at the university level where you know, you're supposed to be autonomous all of a sudden. You know, but if the child learns to be autonomous very young by his homework, see, then you go to university, it's nothing for him to learn by himself, you see. Take notes and all that. He's used to it.
When a child, when we're a child, we are very curious about life. Everything is new and it's like a discovery, and we feel excited for everything. But when we grow older, we feel we know things. We already experienced it, so we don't really look at it anymore. And it seems that our memories, everything we learned and we record it, just create a barrier between our perception and what's outside of us. It's like if nothing is new anymore. Is it possible to be curious again, to see things for the first time again?
Yes.
Through this development of vibratory consciousness.
Yes. The more a person awakens to that vibratory reality, vibrational reality, whatever, the more he becomes creative. See, the more he explores, he becomes a child again, in a sense. You know, because he'll observe things differently. You see, in a multi-dimensional way. You know, at the energy level. You see, so that way he becomes more creative. He becomes like he was as a child, because the child, he loses that curiosity and that creativity because of the influence of the parents. You see? The imposition of the authority. When a parent when parents impose their authority vertically, okay, when they oppose their authority, the child loses something. See, he loses his authority. See, and parents should preserve that little of authority that the child has. You see, and they should make it evolve. They're there for that, but they're not being conscious of that. They impose their authority. You see, as if there was nothing else, no other way of living or looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
See. So
can we
yes.
Can we go to the base of this? Why parents just assume they know things and they have to control the child, they have to impose their authority to the child?
Yeah, because they're subjected to collective consciousness. You see, but they don't know it. You see, they function by the judgment of collective consciousness. You know, it's a big egregore. You know, they don't know the person, or it's not a person. It's not. It's an influence. You see, so they function psychologically. So they lost their authority, and they're subjected to that collective authority. You see, psychological consciousness. You see, so because of that, they will impose that consciousness on their child. See, that way of life, that way of thinking. See. They go through their insecurities, you see?
Yeah.
So if they're very moral, very polarized in their moral, then they'll impose that on the child, you see? And then the child will have the same problems. What reincarnates, you know, contrary to what people believe, it's not the ego, it's not the spirit as such. It is the consciousness that reincarnates.
The level.
The level of, the quality of consciousness that reincarnates, you see? From one body to another, you see? People conceive a child, you know, physically, and then they transfer, they're not conscious of that, but they transfer that consciousness. It reincarnates in the child. See? And then you got that conscious perpetuates. It's like immortal.
So how do we break this cycle of servant for the child?
Yeah, well, it can be broken by individually only.
Yeah.
It can't be broken collectively. Forget that. It's the collective consciousness of man is too strong. See?
It wouldn't change. It wouldn't want to change.
No, it will resist.
There's
of course.
too many resistance.
Yeah. So individually we can liberate ourselves from that. That's what we call awakening. See? It's not a spiritual, it's very occult, but it's not spiritual like people think. It's more down to earth than people think. See? You awaken to what? To our reality, to that functions by vibration. You see, the fifth dimension. You learn how to observe in a different way, in a multidimensional way. You see? So you develop that vibratory consciousness. You see? By experience. Not by learning, by information only. Information is not enough. You got to live the experience. You got to integrate that. See? Integrating what? Integrating that superior observation. See?
Yes. When we're a child, we have a very unique way to experience life. We're very connected all the time with our environment, and it just creates kind of a specific quality of life, in a sense, a certain dimension of experience.
Yeah.
Sorry?
A certain happiness, happy like a child.
Happiness, yeah, we feel very exciting, and we lose it. When we develop this vibratory consciousness of reality, we tend to change our perceptions and the quality of our life, the quality of our experience. Is it connected? This quality of experience is...
What's your question exactly? What is exactly
your question? The question is what is the link between this happiness, this vitality, being always happy, and the development of this vibratory consciousness of reality?
It's because your mind becomes less categorized. You see, it's more whole, more holistic. You look at things that are more holistic. Everything's connected anyway, you know. So you can make the connections. You can make connections with things that you couldn't connect before. So you solve your life problems much easier. See, you can see what's going on. You can see what's behind things. What's behind the fact that you don't feel so good with certain people, whatever, you know. Why you suffer from life, you know. So, and then you start correcting it. See?
So through the correction, you arrive to get back this vitality, this happiness, of this creativity.
Yeah, it's not happiness anymore. It's more, you know, you feel good in yourself. You know, you feel better, in the sense that you have less problems. You solve your problem easier, so you have more peace, inner peace. That's what's important. Happiness is a myth, you know.
Yeah.
So people who search for happiness because they can't acquire it. They can't acquire peace of mind. Why? Because they're thinking all the time. They have problems all the time. You see? They complicate things because they function in a psychological way instead of functioning in a wider spectrum of reality. See, psychological reality and reality in its whole is totally different. People have no idea, you know. Even the more spiritual people have no idea what it is. See? They try to acquire it, but through a psychological channel, or psychologically. See? But until they're polarized in their minds, and they're subjected to collective consciousness, they can't acquire that inner peace. They can't acquire they can't awaken. Possible.
So it's a whole new existence. It's a different way of experiencing life. It's just totally different experience.
Well, it is life. You become human. See, human beings are not human beings yet. Look around you, you know. Look at the wars, look at everything. Look what man is doing on earth. He's not a total human being yet. He has to go to acquire a superior consciousness, way of observing reality, in other words, to become a human being, a real human being.
So it's like a rebirth.
It's like, well, it's not a rebirth, it's a birth. It's you know, when you awaken, you really, it's the last, okay, you're born physically, mentally up to a certain point, but then you really born. You know, what happens is that you're really incarnate. The spirit incarnates. See? So it sinks through matter. See?
Mm-hmm.
The spirit doesn't have to go elsewhere. It's here he has to go. He has to explore matter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but the more he knows about matter, about life, actually, you know, without matter, there's no life as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's life, but it's life in potential. When it's only energy, it's life and potential. You need matter. Matter is the experience. See? We can evolve in matter.
So the whole quest to achieve or to get something superior outside of us and beyond us is all fake. And,
it's it's an illusion. It's a psychological veil, an illusion. It's not like that. It's inside us. It's not outside us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's within our reach, in the sense that we just have to awaken to it, and then it sinks in. Just like a child learns how to walk, you know, how to talk. It sinks in.
Mm-hmm.
See, he has to live the experience. So, what is the experience so it sinks in? It's a new kind of observation of reality. We have a partial. Man can observe reality up to a certain point. It's in a psychological way, which is limited. You see, once he starts to expand, you know, and is a kind of observation, then he observes in a superior way, in a multi-dimensional way. Psychologically, it's more one dimension, you know, a very limited dimension. So once it's like an iceberg, you know, you see only the tip, and then you have the whole iceberg under it. Well, the rest of the iceberg, is the fifth dimension. It's the way the system works, you know.
Mm-hmm. So what you call the spirit is basically the essence of man, of the consciousness of man, and it just integrates itself. It just understanding its own system, its own.
Spirit is the life within man.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's the life within a bird. A bird has spirit. See, mm-hmm. It's alive. So it has some kind of consciousness. Except man has a consciousness that's more evolved, you see. He has the brain to support it.
Mm-hmm.
The bird doesn't have the brain to support it, see. The chimpanzee doesn't have the brain to support it.
So it's an energy, it's a force.
Yeah. It's not only a force, but it's experience. It's information.
Mm-hmm.
Man is accumulation of a certain information. See?
Mm-hmm.
That's his heritage. That's what his consciousness, even his psychological consciousness, is an accumulation of what? Information. You see? Mm-hmm. Experience of all men, all since the amoeba. You know, that's man. Mm-hmm. So, how? Through information, through the accumulation of information. How does a flower becomes a certain type of flower? There's some kind of information somewhere. You see?
Mm-hmm.
That dictates how it's going. It's automatic. See? Another automation. So it's a program. We're all programmed a certain way. And programs are the accumulation of experience.
Mm-hmm.
That information is, if you want to know where it is, it's in space. It's in the space between atoms, between the particles. There's a lot of space there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the
So
information.
everything is. So it's very, very close from us. It's everywhere.
Energy is information.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is information. It's like a big computer, you know.
Mm-hmm. So when we develop this vibratory consciousness of reality, we are more sensitive and we can perceive easily this kind of energy information. So it's a whole development. It just
Exactly.
It takes time to
Yeah.
get sensitive again. And,
It takes the
like
experience, you see? You have to live the experience. What experience? Of the experience of observing in a different way, in a multidimensional way. You see? Observing the system.
through the senses, though, not just
Through your consciousness.
mentally.
Through your consciousness mentally. And then it develops a superior mental, if you want to call it that way. Superior way of functioning. See?
But you would say that is more holistic perception than just
Of course.
psychological perception.
No, it's more holistic. Psychology is more categorized, you know. You use forms and then the meaning of forms and all that, and you can't connect sometimes things together, you know, logically. But by vibration, you can connect things that don't seem connected. See? But to a trained person, it's easy to make the connection.
Yes, so that's why children connect much easier, because there's no resistance, there's no blockages.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically you're saying that if we are in this state of just perceiving after developing this new way of observing life, we get back this sensitivity, this capacity to perceive the whole, and being more holistic in our approaches.
Of course, it's automatic. It's not an attitude.
But it's not
you can see, you can observe the logic, the vibratory logic. It's a different kind of logic. See, so you can see it. Just like a biologist sees things that another person doesn't see. See, he has a trained observation capacity. You know, he trained for that, and the more he practices, the more he looks at things differently. You know, than other people. He makes connections that other people can't make because of his background, because of his experience. Same thing with that, you know. But this vibratory consciousness is universal. See?
right.
Once a person develops it, you know, his capacity to observe that, it's the same thing for everybody. It's not a form, it's a capacity. See? So what I can observe, you can observe if you have enough experience, you know, of observing by yourself. See? At first you can observe with me, let's say, you have an apprenticeship of observing, you know, if you can absorb it, if you don't interfere psychologically too much by trying to remember or trying to figuring out, You know, it's like learning a new language. So you immerse yourself in it, and then you learn how to, okay, you observe in a different way. And then you accumulate experience, and then you develop it by yourself. You see, you start living it. Once you start living it, then you are observing it in your own life, then you integrate it. You start integrating it, and then it becomes yours. You see?
Mm-hmm. Could we talk a little bit about what you call the resistance to this observation, this new way of observing things? Because it seems that there's so many that is passed down from generation to generation, and that they're very disturbing, this capacity to come to life, to exist. So what's the nature of this resistance? Is it all the way of thinking, all the way of observing, which is limited, or is it much more than that?
Well, the resistance is a consciousness, okay? A psychological consciousness, a way of looking at things, a way of observing things. It's a habit. It's program. It's natural. It's automatic, okay? People, the more the person is intellectually strong, the more he is insecure. You see? It's insecurity that makes the person develop and develop and develop psychologically. See? And when he's in contact with the vibratory reality, it creates a conflict, a fight, a resistance. You see? The habit of, the person tries to take that knowledge or that information and bring it in the psychological box. See? Trying to understand it. You can't understand it like that. It's like, you speak a language, and then you learn Chinese, and every word you learn, okay, that means that. That means in French or in English, you see? But if you learn the language, if you learn Chinese, well, doorknob is whatever, a dog is whatever. See, you associate it with the form, not with your way of looking at it. See, that way you immerse yourself. So
this. The resistance that wants to control everything, to understand through the mind, through the intellect. How does one get rid of this? How does this resistance go away? How does all resistance go away?
By being observed by the person. So you have to observe it. Being able to observe the automatism, being able to observe the phenomenon of resistance, you already have a distance, you see, less resistance. And the more you do that, the more you live that kind of experience, the more distance you have. See? So the less resistance you have, the more you integrate, the more you become in contact with that reality, with the vibratory or the system. The system functions like that, see?
So through time you start to learn quicker and quicker about all these aspects.
Yeah, as long as you can observe the resistance, your tendency to, then it starts. It's very, it's not, like this. It's not categorized like that. It's, a mixture. It's very fluid.
It seems like it's full of traps and
full of traps. Yeah, the traps are the psychological traps you fall in. You know, you try to understand it through your old knowledge. You know, your old concepts of reality. Actually,
it seems that somehow through experience you have to learn how to let go and not try to control your learning.
It's not learning how to let go. You know, you can't learn how to let go. See, that's psychological. That's an attitude.
Yes.
See?
That's why. How do we get to the point that we kind of let go by itself?
Okay. Through observation. The capacity to observe the phenomena. That's all. So until you have the capacity to observe the phenomena, then you're subjected to the phenomena. See?
Right. So
how do you get to that point? Is through being in contact with a person that lives that consciousness. There's no other way. Just like a child with his parents, you see? That's the way it works. It always works by influence, always. You know, once you start being less and less in resistance, then you start more learning by yourself. The ultimate goal is autonomy. See, being in your own authority. So if you believe the other person doesn't work, see, you got to be able to take what a person, not only what the person says, but you got to be able to start observing by yourself. You see, but you got to have an idea before, a little idea. You see, before.
So it gives direction, a kind of.
Yeah. So the main thing is to be aware of the resistance, because through the resistance, a person is being disinformed. See, and human beings are being disinformed all the time by themselves. That's why it's so hard to see through it, because you're disinforming yourself. See? Through what? Through the fact that you adhere to the collective authority.
So would you say that collective authority is totally on the wrong path?
No, not necessarily. You know, there's some things that are all right, but the main premise is flawed. See? And the main premise is the fact that we have to function primarily through collective consciousness. That's the problem. We have to function primarily to individual consciousness. It's individual that creates collectivity, not the reverse, you see? But people who live by reverse osmosis, in a sense, you know. So.
It seems that it came from our ancestors, and the whole story of men wanting to secure themselves, being in a group and then giving their own authority to the group so they can feel safe.
Yeah, well, man had to evolve, you know. So the psychological consciousness created itself, you know, through a man's consciousness development, you know, evolution.
Yeah.
But it's not enough. See?
Mm-hmm.
You need another thing to evolve. Otherwise, you're going to suffer from if you have a person who only is in psychological consciousness, he suffers because he's polarized in his mind. As long as you're polarized, you suffer. Collective consciousness is only polarity. It's very polarized, you know. Judgment.
Yes, but it's pretty difficult to see that polarity is the factor that makes us suffer. It's very difficult for someone that haven't looked at it for such
you gotta look.
period of time.
You've got to look at it through the eyes of somebody else who sees through it, and even then, it's not easy. You see, you just okay. You have the information. In your life, you can okay. That's what he means by polarity. You know, after a year or two, you know, of experiences, you know, that's what it means. Okay. But you got to be open. See?
How does one get to be open?
When he suffers enough.
Right.
When he suffers enough of the psychological consciousness or the aftermaths of it, then he's ready. You know, if he's in contact with a person that can help him liberate himself from that.
So there's a great need for freedom, for being free from this condition.
Of course. Yeah. Freedom is being free from collective consciousness, and everything that comes with it. Collective consciousness today is psychological. Purely involutive, you know.
As a group,
Well, it's not a group. It's not a group. It's a consciousness in each individual. You see. So each individual is not free because his identity is dependent of that consciousness, collective consciousness, that judgment, everything, you know. So that authority, actually, it's very subtle, very occult. You know, it's not a group, it's not a person, it's not persons, it's a consciousness. So it's a collective consciousness. Humanity today lives in that consciousness, involutive. It's not evolving. It's going around and around and around. See? And today it's at a point of evolution, of no return, actually, you know. It's going at the extremes. So some individuals which are more sensitive to suffering and all that, then they start searching for something else. You know, a lot of people go through that spiritual, esoteric, try to find answers in there, but that's part of collective consciousness. That's part of the old consciousness, you see.
But still, they're trying to find something different. They try to find liberation and identity.
Yeah, they're looking for their identity, but they can't find it in there. That's what keeps them from being in their own identity, see? As long as they're in that kind of authority, they can't get out of it. Because they're being disinformed. They disinform themselves because they don't know what's going on. It's very occult. It's very you can't see it. That's the problem. And it's very hard to see too. Even if someone like me explains, it's very hard to see. It's got to be part of your own experience.
So it cannot be just integrated through psychological understanding. It has to be experience and
through information only.
Over and over and over.
No. You can't read about it, then okay, I understand. you know, like some intellectuals, you know. Oh yeah, I understand what you're talking about, you know. No, you don't. You gotta live the experience.
So. Yes. When we just listen to it, it seems that it's just learning about new things, but the experience is much greater than just understanding
exactly, the facts. Exactly. Very simple. But you gotta live the experience. Oh, okay. Simple, but it's very occult. It's very eye-opening, you know. Yeah. Once you start living it, once you start observing it, once you start seeing a little bit more through the resistance and all that, you know, your habits, your automatisms and all that, you know, of thinking a certain way. So.
Yes. The only fact of, if we take just one of the facts of, if we can be free totally from the authority of collective authority, this only fact, if we're totally free, if we assume we get that, we can't even imagine the implication, the
exactly
incredible implication that it would
exactly
that would happen in our life. It would just such a great turn in our life.
Yes, human beings who were great, okay, that other humans consider great, consider different, were people who partially got away from the influence of collective authority. Mm-hmm. Look at it. You know, study those persons, and you'll see. Nietzsche, the Nazarene, Buddha, all those guys.
Mm-hmm. So they were free?
No. No, partly free.
Partly free. Freer than the others.
Freer than the others, yeah. And they changed a lot of things.
Oh, yes.
One individual. So imagine now what's happening.
Themselves first, right?
Yeah. So imagine now what's going on, you know. It's much wider. Oh, yeah. It's total, you know. Right. It's not partial.
Revolution.
Has nothing to do with beliefs. It has to do with science, more scientific now. See? We had to go through all that, you know. Mm-hmm. These individuals helped the human being evolve up to a certain point, you know. And then once we involve enough, you know, around that, you know, and suffer from it and all that, all those kinds of beliefs without verifying anything, you know, then we start really liberating ourselves, you know, or start to know what is real freedom.
Because the way we're living is too disturbed, too painful.
Yeah, the way people think, the way people are, not, the fact that they're not in their own authority, in their own identity, that's why people suffer. If you're in your authority, you don't suffer from loneliness or whatever. You know, you have the capacity to learn anything, observe everything, to know everything you want to know. See? You explore it, that's all. But through another kind of eye. See? You have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. That's what people call the third eye. What's the third eye? Why a third eye? We can see through our eyes, but you've got to see through your mind's eyes. Right? But it's got to be adjusted a reality. Can't just imagine things, We learn from, actually, we gotta study nature, study the system.
Through different perceptions.
Well, instead of imagining things, how it works, well, I think it works like that. Well, okay. Good luck.
So it's about verification, observing.
Always. It's very scientific. So if I can observe it in my life, then you observe it, then another observes it, in his life, and applies it in his life, that's beginning to be scientific. It's universal. It's a reality.
It seems that concerning matter, we are quite able to do that, being quite scientific about it. But when we talk about ourselves or psychic, there's so many more resistance.
Yeah, because of the interpretation, the past interpretation, which is part of collective authority. You see. So we don't know nothing. We have no capacity except what the experience of others before us. No, it doesn't work like that. We have to adjust ourselves first, and then we learn by ourselves. See?
A bit like when we are a child.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you got to become a child again. See, in a sense.
In the way you observe things freely and naturally and with joy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you start living your own authority by through your own observation.
But at the time, this authority is owned consciously. Is not. You know what I mean? We get it. We own it through our own understanding. Again, this time we can lose.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the difference. But to get there, to get to that kind of observation, that's another thing. See, that you have to learn from with somebody else. You see.
Mm-hmm.
But the object is your autonomy. You see. Once you're autonomous, then you're in contact with another person who's autonomous. Then things happen. See. Very interesting can happen. Then there's the third one, and fourth one, and fifth one. Then it happens even more. It's more creative. It's interesting. It's like a Pandora's box.